You're listening to the TahoeDeep podcast, hosted by Chase Petley and Noah Jeremy.
He said, Donnie, there's things out in this lake that nobody has ever seen.
It's impossible to see clearly or identify what kind of fish it is. Fish researchers said while the animal looks remarkably shark-like,
we found a large fish while we were videotaping at 1,100 feet.
Petley is hoping to expand and refine his project.
In 1976, I was out on Lake Tahoe, and we saw something that I cannot explain.
So, that was a fun day.
No, I don't want to watch this. Go to the next. There we go. So here we go. I'm going to show the footage we ended on. What they called the Tahoe shark.
Yeah, and I tried to reassure them multiple times, hey, that's not a shark.
It's not a shark. It's almost guaranteed a Mackinaw.
Yeah.
But let's... Oh, man. Maybe this was the wrong footage to show.
Well, what inspired them to say it was a shark is it was pretty deep and it was very large. It's hard to tell from the video. Unless you're sitting there staring at the stuff all day like I am, it's hard to tell the size and what's happening in these videos.
It was just brief enough in the right way that it looks like a shark. And you spoke to a shark researcher.
Well, that's what the news started getting the shark story from. When I asked some scientists that were pretty leading in their field, what could this be? They started talking about sharks because they said the pectorals are extremely rigid, which is not conducive of a freshwater fish, where freshwater fish usually have more of a lobed pectoral fin. So
it does, like, you look at it some way, and sometimes I look at it, I'm like, maybe that's... I think maybe it's a catfish. I think sharks pushing it, considering there's, I think there's maybe two species of actual freshwater shark that are more like river sharks.
I don't think
it's so cold. It's so cold in Tahoe. I just find it's 99%. Maybe it's it's a lake trout that you filmed weird, or it's a subspecies of lake trout, or it's a catfish. I don't know, but either way, it's cool and it's deep. I think we've been back and forth. I put on TikTok it was 1,100 feet deep. I don't think that's right because of the lighting. I think it's probably, you think maybe more like 700 feet, because this was when you were bringing it back up, right?
So that day we filmed down to 1,100 feet. Sometimes it looks like the sun might be there in the left side of the screen, but we had very bright lights that were higher up. And sometimes it can make it look like you're actually seeing the sun because it's lighting up a large area. So that actually could be down below the actual light cutoff.
So it could be 1,100 feet, but we don't know for sure. So we're saying to be safe.
Even sometimes when I'm filming at 6,000 feet deep at work, you could swear that you're 10 feet underwater because the lights could really light up the whole area.
Yeah.
And it looks like it could be like 10 feet, but you're really far off where natural light cuts off.
Well, you were offshore for work. That's when I started posting on our TikTok, and a whole bunch of our posts went viral, right? Like we had that black blob creature. I can't remember how deep it was, but it got 2.5 million views. It was the second post I ever made on our TikTok channel, and one of the most recurring comments I had to deal with was people saying this is fake, there's no light at that depth. People unable to comprehend that floodlights exist. And I had to repeatedly post and respond that this is a massive ROV the size of a small house or a large car, and it's got massive floodlights. And this isn't very big, this creature, so it looks like it's shallow, but it's not, So it's interesting that you bring that up, because that was one of the big things I had to deal with filming anything, showing any of the footage of your offshore stuff, was people saying there's no light. How are you seeing that? As if you can't use some kind of floodlight at depth.
Well, that's a lesson I guess we can learn. People aren't used to seeing footage from thousands of feet underwater, so it's kind of hard to see and tell what you're looking at when you look at it. So I think in the future it would be beneficial having a supplementary camera higher up showing the whole situation. Because I do plan on using high-powered lights, and unfortunately, when you use high-powered lights, it's not going to look pitch black anymore. So kind of got it.
But I think as you establish more legitimacy, and I think you've already established a good bed of legitimacy, even though we're talking about some controversial things like a potential lake monster, which really, is just the term we're using. In reality, as you've said before, it's just a creature we haven't cataloged yet, right? It's not something crazy. It's not something paranormal. It's a biological organism that has its own pattern of behavior that you can understand. It reproduces, it eats, it sleeps, it shits. You can figure out what it is. We just don't know what it is yet, right? So anyway, and previously I talked about how I think we filmed another invasive species at the very bottom of the lake. And I didn't change this. This is at the very bottom. It's not 700 to 1100 feet. It's 1600 feet deep that this was filmed.
Yeah,
I forgot to change the text.
So back then, during when I was filming this, I wasn't messing around filming anything shallower than 1650 feet. When I had the opportunity to go out, I was just hitting 1650 feet every chance I got. So
let me just play this at slow playback speed. You can see right here what we think is a jellyfish, or a bunch of them. And you can see it do its jellyfish movement right there. And then go back in, and then go again. And then I'll play it a little faster, do normal speed, so you can really see.
From an outsider's perspective, it could be hard to say for sure, yeah, that's a jellyfish. But from my perspective, seeing this video footage for hundreds of hours and knowing what I'm looking at, it's pretty clear to me that that's definitely a life form. Definitely looks like a jellyfish.
And let's get down to why we think it's a jellyfish, and it's really not that bizarre. Now, a lot of people listening, watching, will probably think this is freshwater, this is a jellyfish. Jellyfish are saltwater creatures. I know that's what I thought only a couple months ago. And then I watched a video about freshwater jellyfish, I believe in Thailand. This lake, freshwater lake, filled with jellyfish you can go to. But beyond that, and this is the next slide,
I might even have
California has its own
jellyfish.
species. California has its own species of invasive freshwater jellyfish. I'm not going to attempt to say the Latin name of it, but in the Sierra foothills, it's well documented, this invasive jellyfish species. It originates in the Yangtze River in China. It's been in North America. I think it was first found in North America in the early 20th century. And it's been found all over the country. It's been found in the Great Lakes. It's been found all over the world. It's a problem. And I think this is the species, or something similar to it, that we filmed at the bottom of the lake. My theory is this species got introduced into the lake through a bilge pump, as just about every other invasive species is introduced to lakes, from zebra mussels to plant species to fish species to bugs and various things. I believe this was probably introduced in the bilge pump. I imagine you never see it at the surface of the lake, because it just gets eaten by all of the biomass in the lake. But because at the bottom of the lake there's much less biomass, living creatures there to hunt, but also there's so much sea snow and stuff falling down to feed, and that would be good for a filter organism, it allows these things to grow and survive at the bottom of the lake. I imagine some ended up, maybe their baby, I don't know how jellyfish, I don't know if they have eggs or live babies or whatever, but their offspring managed to get to the bottom of the lake somehow. Maybe they were in the belly of a fish and the fish fell to the bottom, or maybe they just fell to the bottom, and then a population lives at depth. Because guess what? Jellyfish are a creature you regularly see very deep, because they have bodies that can survive depth. So I think that's what we filmed, is this invasive species at the very bottom of the lake.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I actually have a video of what they look like. And you can see they have these long little tentacle things. And then you can compare it with this.
I don't know if we're looking at the same species exactly. I think in our video it shows a little bit more pronounced tentacles, but I think we're definitely on the right track. Some invasive species of freshwater jellyfish. It's definitely nothing alien, nothing crazy.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think really the point I want to illustrate here is that freshwater jellyfish exist. Freshwater jellyfish have been found in California, in the Sierra foothills, very close to Lake Tahoe. And while I couldn't find any online information about these being in Lake Tahoe, it is not a far fetch that these have been introduced to the lake, or some similar species have been introduced. Or maybe it is an endemic species of jellyfish that live in the depths of Tahoe. So let's go to the next one. And this is where things get interesting, Chase. I'm going to leave this to you. I think we watch this, listen, and then I'll let you talk about it.
So just for you that are listening and not seeing, it says, this is footage we took very deep in the lake. This is the first ever recording of freshwater marine life using echolocation. And I'm not totally certain with that, but I was very excited when I typed this. And Noah increased the audio 500%. Here you go.
Why can't I hear it? Can you hear anything?
I heard it once. It does start off a little bit quiet.
So before I replay that again, what we think this is echolocation being used at the bottom of the lake. Some form of echolocation.
I'll explain the situation. What you're seeing on the camera is my camera view of a big sack of bait that I put out there. This is one of the first times I ever really put bait and sat something down at the bottom. And you're hearing these echolocations sounding like noises over and over and over consecutively. They were actually filmed over a span of about 10 minutes. I didn't know that these sounds were on the video. I just posted the video up on the internet, and some people on the internet got back to me and said, "Hey man, there's some weird sounds in your video there, so listen to the audio," and I did, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds..." I know it's not the equipment making the noise, and I know noises that I usually hear at the bottom of the lake, and it doesn't fit either one of those. So then it kind of correlated with it getting closer and louder, and then on a different dive, I was able to capture the fish actually coming right by the camera, making the noise, and the noise was extremely loud when the fish came right by the camera. So I kind of, in my own mind, proved to myself that I really think this sound is coming from the fish. Is it echolocation? I don't know, but I think the fish is making the noise.
Yeah, and just so our theory is that it is echolocation, and what's significant about that is that only mammals have been known to use echolocation in some bird species. So if a fish is using echolocation, that is a scientific discovery. However, fish have many organs in them that can make sound. They have swim bladders that can make sound, right? Vibrate, and there are fish species that use them and vibrate them to make sound. There is no guarantee that this sound is echolocation. It might just be a fish hunting and making it as a byproduct. But we do think it is a natural sound, and because we always hear this in a hunting capacity, like they're coming to check out what's going on. And for those who don't know echolocation is what a bat uses to hunt. It's like sonar, essentially. They bounce sound waves to figure out where something is to go and find it. It's a hunting sense. Dolphins use it to hunt. So it's an incredibly useful biological tool in a place that has zero light at the bottom. For example, at the bottom of Lake Tahoe. So the fact that if it is echolocation, it wouldn't be that crazy, because it would be the perfect sense to use to hunt at the bottom of a deep, dark lake.
Absolutely.
So let's just listen again, and then I want you to talk a bit more about this. I think I'll probably overlay better footage audio with this rather than what we're using right now. But and you did talk to a sonar specialist, right, who also thought it was echolocation. Is that right?
Yeah, as I touched on, I work offshore with some pretty good people in their field when it comes to deep water research. And I spoke to a guy that I regard as maybe one of the best in the world when it comes to sonar and stuff like that. And he thinks, without a doubt, that could be echolocation. Now, it does not sound like echolocation that mammals use that we have recorded, but I wouldn't expect it to sound like mammal echolocation. If this was a trout that's evolved its own little form of using echolocation, it would be kind of preposterous for it to sound exactly like a mammal using echolocation, evolved in a completely different situation. So I just have to find the answer of how is this fish hunting. It's down at 1,650 feet. It's finding my target really quick, and I'm hearing these sounds. And all those things to me just add up to that is some type of sound being used to locate. So.
And I just want to add on to this, just thinking with a biologist hat. A fish using some kind of primal echolocation doesn't seem that far-fetched to me. I mean, think about us humans. When we deprive our sight senses, our hearing improves. You go into a dark room and you deprive yourself of the ability to see, very quickly your ability to hear drastically improves. And I imagine with time, you could adapt a crude ability to use a kind of echolocation to figure out where you are and where you're going. So imagine, we know that fish can make sounds with their swim bladders. We know fish use them. Some fish use them to attract mates. Some fish use these sounds for various reasons, using the vibrating of the swim bladder. So let's imagine that a subsect of these trout figure out that by vibrating their swim bladder with their visual senses suppressed and their hearing senses improved, they're able to hear better, and they're kind of using these sound waves as a crude form of echolocation, almost like Marco Polo, to figure out where their prey are. And I'm not saying that this is a sophisticated echolocation like that used by bats or dolphins, but maybe what we're seeing is a fish species which has a crude form of echolocation they figured out how to use to hunt. Maybe in relatively short time, maybe over a long period of time. However, it could also be echolocation used by something else.
I think it's worth saying, too, that trout can adapt extremely fast to their environments. Trout in two different lakes right next to each other have completely different abilities and different morphologies. They can actually look physically different. They change really rapidly over a short period of time to adapt to their environment. So,
and we're running kind of long on this episode, but we're about to tie this off. Very quickly, I want to show this video again. We showed it in the last podcast. I'll move forward. And really what this video shows is how California and Nevada were under the ocean at one point. The Lake Tahoe basin, the whole area, and much of Nevada were coastal sea hundreds of millions of years ago. And tens of millions of years ago, Nevada and the Tahoe area was swampy marshland, probably with lots of probably salt marshes and things like that was separated from the main ocean. So let's imagine that there are, prehistoric creatures that are living in these salt marshes and these lakes that have survived from the sea retreating and the rising of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And we know when these live too, and they're living in the area. Let's imagine that all of a sudden Sierra Nevada mountains start to rise up, creating the Tahoe Basin, and all of a sudden these creatures are isolated from the rest of Nevada, the rest of the ocean. And as it deepens, these creatures can adapt to the Lake Tahoe Basin. Lake Tahoe emerges, and maybe, just maybe, we have a population of these prehistoric creatures as surviving as a holdover in a very deep lake. This is all speculation. This is all talking somewhat out of my ass. But we know that Lake Tahoe, or the whole area of California, Nevada, was covered in seawater at one point. And we know that there were very interesting prehistoric creatures that looked very similar to the lake monster myths and legends we hear. So
Absolutely.
To reiterate, Lake Tahoe Basin itself was formed about 24 million years ago, which is a very long time for a lake basin. Most lakes in North America have a life cycle of 10 to 20,000 years. And here are two prehistoric creatures that I think are of immense interest, because they're seen all over the area, Nevada, Lake Tahoe. Fossils have been found, and that is ichthyosaurs, which are these reptile fish creatures that look like a mix between a shark and a porpoise, and their fossils are found all over Nevada. And I know that the last ichthyosaurs are supposed to have gone extinct. I don't know in the region, but I know in the world about 6 million years ago. And of course, that's well within the existence of the Lake Tahoe Basin. And beside it, we have the Augustosaurus, which is similar to a plesiosaur. It's in that clade. I think they're called, I have my notes somewhere, maybe, let me escape and look. Plistosaurus. They're a plistosaur. Now, the Augustosaurus was found in the Augustus Mountains in Nevada, which is only 140 miles from Lake Tahoe, and 100 miles from Pyramid Lake, which is connected to Lake Tahoe by the Truckee River, and there's legends that there's underground connections, but definitely by the Truckee River. And of course, that doesn't even matter, because when these were around, and hundreds of millions of years ago when they were really around, it was all undersea, and it was all connected, right? So these would have swam above Lake Tahoe hundreds of millions of years ago. So, and they're said to have gone extinct, not extinct. This fossil of Augustosaurus was found 65 million years ago. So, maybe there's in a far-fetched world, maybe, just maybe, if you're looking for a place for one of these to survive, all of the crazy climactic and geological disruptions, meteors hitting Nevada, a very deep lake like Lake Tahoe would be a great place. And just to speak quickly about ichthyosaurs, there's evidence of some ichthyosaurs being warm-blooded, which would allow them to survive very cold temperatures. And we know the bottom of Lake Tahoe gets very cold. Now,
and to wrap this up, because I'm getting a really low battery warning from my ear every couple seconds now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would just like to add, before hopefully this thing doesn't die, but I have filmed in the bottom of Lake Tahoe for a very short period of time. And what we've been able to film in that short period of time is a lot of life. And for us not to find more life or find more interesting life in the next upcoming season of us out there filming, very high chance we're going to find some cool stuff. So not saying that it could be dinosaurs or whatever, but we're going to definitely find something cool. I can guarantee you.
I have a hunch we're going to find a new species of some kind. I don't think we're going to find a plesiosaur or an ichthyosaur.
I don't think so.
This is all wild speculation, but it's so interesting that I have to talk about it. And anything else you want to tie off before I end the podcast, which I think is a really cool anecdote?
I couldn't even hear you that time because this thing is going so crazy in my ear, so hopefully you can still hear me well. Can you please just say that one again?
I said anything else you want to mention before I just tie off the podcast?
Basically, as far as biology goes in Lake Tahoe, and to wrap up this episode, I think that from where we started, with the scientists thinking that there wasn't very much life at the bottom of Lake Tahoe, below 500 feet, I think we've proven that there is an abundance of life, at least near the fault lines of Lake Tahoe. And I think that there's going to be much more to find. We've accumulated maybe 6 hours of footage at the bottom of Lake Tahoe, and I think we're going to get at least 100 hours this summer. So, I don't know, I feel a good sense about what we're going to find.
I feel it too.
Like there's definitely discoveries out there left to be made, and I think we're going to do that this summer.
And by the time I wrap this up, this episode is going to go over an hour, so we're going to cut it into two.
Okay.
I'll edit around so that it's easier for people to follow. But yeah, I just wanted to end with this anecdote. And right here I have a picture for those listening of a coelacanth. And if you don't know what a coelacanth is, it is what we call a living fossil. Scientists said it was extinct. It had been extinct, I was told, in school for over 200 million years. Online today, I imagine they've moved it back. It was said to be extinct 66 million years ago. And then in 1938, off the coast of South Africa, they caught one. And what's very interesting about this is two things. One, we have a precedent of things that we said were extinct being found, right? But the number two, what's interesting is where the coelacanth's habitat is. The coelacanth is a deep water fish. It lives at depths of up to 2,300 feet deep. And going back, Lake Tahoe, many million-year-old lake. If there's any place to find a living fossil, any lake in the world, in North America at the very least, because there's other deep water lakes in the world we want to explore that probably have living fossils. If there's a lake in North America, Lake Tahoe's the place. And I think if there is a living fossil, Lake Tahoe's a great candidate. And man, how cool would it be to find one? So I'm going to end with, this is a video, a highlight reel of a friend of ours, a guy named Captain Donnie Pereira. He's been on the boat for 35 years, veteran boat captain, and he's a part of our team. We will be doing some expeditions with him. He has his boat tricked out. He's a great guy. We have some video of him we'll be sharing in the future. But here we have a highlight reel, the first footage of our conversations with Donnie. We're going to share with you today to tie off the podcast. So, with all that said and done, thank you so much for joining us. I'll let this run as the podcast ends. Chase, if you can hear me, anything you want to say to our viewers?
As long as you can still hear me. Can you?
I can, yeah, I hear you great.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just excited to go and explore this lake. Whatever we find, even if it is that there is basically no life at the bottom of Lake Tahoe, we are going to find out the truth, and it's, at the very least, we're going to find some really cool sights. Like I said on the news, I just want to see what's down there, and we're going to get that done. So.
Well said. Sometimes it's about the journey just as much as the destination. So let's watch this.
So my name's Captain Donnie Pereira. I grew up here in Lake Tahoe. I've been a captain on this lake for 35 plus years. Grew up on the beach down at State Line on the southeast corner. But my grandfather built a house on the beach back in the 50s. So I was with my grandparents most of my life. So in 1976, I was out on Lake Tahoe with a friend of mine, and we were rowing the boat into the shore, and we saw something that I cannot explain. It looked prehistoric, like nothing I've ever seen before. On the way in, we're rowing the boat. My partner, Phil, he's hanging over the bow of the boat, and he's looking down. Of course, it's crystal clear. We're in probably 40 feet of water, half a mile offshore or so, quarter mile probably. And he sees this fish, this huge fish, swimming towards the shore. Had a flat head. It had a big hooked jaw, like a salmon. The jaw was hooked. The nose went over the front of the bottom jaw. The teeth hung down about 2 to 3 inches. I mean, massive teeth, silver scales that looked like shiny quarters. It almost looked chrome. It was so shiny. And it got up to, we were in a 12-foot rowboat, 12-foot plastic rowboat. The nose stuck out past the front of the boat. The tail was past the stern of the boat. And it wasn't a sea monster. It was some type of a prehistoric looking fish. But I could have literally leaned over the boat and hit the top of the fish with my hand. It was a foot down below the water. It was going into the beach towards Edgewood Golf Course. So we had been fishing all morning. My grandpa's house was about 100 yards away. So we think, okay, let's row over and get our poles and come back. And after we came back, started trolling, we never saw the fish again, obviously. And I don't think we hooked it. I don't think we could have brought that thing in anyway. The girth on it was, I'd say, oh my gosh, probably 2-3 feet around the girth. It looked like a long silver torpedo. The eyes, it was looking right at us. I mean, we were right there. It was incredible. I've never seen anything like that before. The biggest fish I've ever seen, period. Yeah. I've been a fishing guide on Lake Tahoe for 6 years. I've never seen anything like that before in my entire life. It was massive. I've looked and I've talked to some people from UC Davis, the marine research. No, there's no fish in this lake that are supposed to have scales. I've looked through internet trying to find freshwater fish, prehistoric, trying to match something up. I don't really have a match for it, but I'm still looking. I look all the time on the computer when I have free time, trying to see if I can, match that up. But actually, I was talking to the chief of the Washoe Indians tribe back quite a few years ago on a boat trip out there, Brian. And I had mentioned to him my fish story, and he told me that He said, Donnie, there's things out in this lake that nobody has ever seen. Yeah, so for most charter captains on fishing boats that take people out, they fish no more than, I'd say, 200 feet. So a huge portion of the lake is not even being touched by fishermen. Nobody goes down that deep. So yeah, Lake Tahoe is 1,645 feet deep. The average depth of the lake.
And I think we'll end there. I think that's plenty enough.
Yeah.
And just for those watching, wondering about the cuts and doctoring footage, that's not the case. It's me cutting myself out when I'm asking him questions, and also taking what I think are the highlights. This is from a 45-minute conversation, more like an hour conversation with Donnie. And I put it into a little highlight reel for your easy consumption, and also to share with some friends with ours for a project that we're not going to talk about right now, but is very cool, and I hope to talk about with you very soon. So thank you very much.
Really cool.
Have a
Thank you.
great day, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Have a good one there, Noah.